Alright, Jay Swift here again with another UFC prediction video. UFC 220. If there's ever been a show where you have two really good fights that you're excited about, it would be this show. And if there's ever been a show where you have absolutely no interest in the undercard whatsoever, it would also be this show. And here to help us make our predictions and preview the entire card, the one, the only, Mike Coughlin of HalfGuarded.com. Mike Coughlin, please introduce yourself.
Well, I think you did a fine job there, Mr. Swift. I'm Mike Coughlin. I do a little bit of fighting, a little bit of talking, and a lot of bit of loving, and that's what we're going to do right here, right now for UFC 220.
And it's one of those things where you have so much stuff going on. College football is finally over. You got the NFL playoffs. I mean, there's just so much stuff going on in the sports world. I think that this particular show has kind of fallen through the cracks. It's a shame because the co-main event looks fantastic. I haven't been excited for a double shot from the UFC in a long time. Stipe Miocic, Francis Ngannou taking on Daniel Cormier and Volkan Oezdemir. When I look at this fight, or both fights, they look very similar in nature because you have the stoic, kind of humble, working class champion fighting to prove himself in the absence of the rightful divisional holders. And of course you got the up and coming challengers, the foreign heels, so to speak, with super powerful punches. So when you look at these two fights, what commonalities do you see, and what areas do you think they might diverge in terms of how things may play out in the octagon?
Well, obviously, like you said, there is a bit of the humble American wrestling-based guy who just kind of has made his way in the UFC due to his grit and his hard work and all that stuff. And then you got this foreigner who just, every time he wins, he seems to just knock somebody's head off. I think probably the biggest difference is I believe Cormier is just on paper much further ahead of Volkan Oezdemir, while Stipe is good, but there's a reason no heavyweights ever defended their title 3 times in a row. And a guy like Francis Ngannou with his kind of power, you really don't want to be playing around with that for too long.
Yeah, and Ngannou, I mean, the UFC's been promoting the hell out of this. I think they should be doing it even more. This is a guy who literally has the hardest recorded punch in human history. I mean, this is literally like a Marvel character made flesh, taking on Stipe Miocic. So, obviously, the big worry there is if Ngannou connects, he's going to be lights out. So, what do you think is going to be Stipe's best defensive strategy heading into the fight?
I think that probably his best course of action defensively is a very aggressive offense. I hate to hold the best is good offense, but to get up in Ngannou's face and smother him against the cage, make this dirty and ugly. Like, you don't want to stay on the outside and try to trade, even if you think you're a little quicker or whatever. Like, again, it's just a matter of time, it seems like, with Ngannou. So I would just try to get in tight, and that allows you to take away everything he's got. His power is lesser when he's in tight like that, and you can try to wear him out a little bit.
Is there any chance at all this thing goes 5 rounds, or what's the over-under on the actual fight time?
Oh, let's see. I would have to say the over-under would be 15 minutes. I would feel good about 15 minutes is over-under.
So you have two guys, probably the most explosive strikers in the heavyweight division. You think it'll make it 3 rounds?
I think that's as long as it would go. I think either Ngannou catches Stipe in the first round, maybe round and a half, but more likely the first round. And if not, I believe Stipe will just grind him down. It'll take him about 10 to 12 minutes to kind of fully exhaust Ngannou.
Yeah, and that brings up 2 interesting points heading into the fight. For me, I think the big variables here are going to be chin and cardio. So in those 2 categories, who do you think is the better fighter overall?
Chin, I really don't know with Ngannou. He's never really been tested in any way in his career, especially in the past couple of years. I mean, he's only ever gone like 10 minutes. That's the longest he's ever fought. Stipe, though, he got dropped that one time and KO'd by Stefan Struve. But he withstood a lot of punches from, guys like Junior Dos Santos and just over him. He's got a very good bend but don't break chin, which I think is generally helpful for guys. But you'd have to be Mark Hunt in his prime to be standing up for Ngannou if he connects. I mean, that's just it's almost a moot point. Like, it doesn't matter how great your chin is. Ngannou just does hit that hard.
And who has the advantage in terms of cardio?
Again, it's kind of the same deal with Ngannou as far as we just don't really know, because he's never gone more than 10 minutes in his entire career. He's only gone more than like halfway through the second round once in his UFC career. So with Stipe, he's gone the distance. He's gone 5 hard rounds, real hard rounds at the highest level. He's taken incredible beatings to still come back, which is usually a sign of good cardio. So I would definitely have to give Stipe the edge cardio-wise, just based on what we know. And it's possible Ngannou is some freak, but generally, guys that size or that explosive, they just can't keep that pace up for very long.
And if you had to put your money down on it, who do you have winning this fight, and what round?
Well, I'm kind of torn, because I'm not a big fan of the whole like mythical one-punch knockout guy shows up at the heavyweight division and he hits harder than anybody we've ever seen in the world, and he, like, everybody goes, ooh, this is the next Mike Tyson type of guy. I generally think those guys tend to flame out, but at the same time, there's a reason no heavyweight's ever defended his title 3 times in a row. It's just a jinxed belt. You get to 2, to have 3 title defenses in a row. It's never been done. It's just, this shows how volatile the division is and how difficult it is to survive these big heavy hitters. So law of averages, Stipe should lose, actually, but I still think he's going to win. He's just competed at a higher level for longer, and I think his overall skill set, he's more of a modern mixed martial artist, and I think that's why he'll get the victory sometime in the late 3rd round.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go along with you on that one. I think Stipe is the better overall fighter. But then again, Francis, he's got that insane knockout power. All he needs is one punch to win the fight. So I think Miocic's going to play a pretty smart defensive game early in the first, maybe absorb some smaller shots and work his way and kind of tire him down. So I'm going to go with early 4th round submission for Miocic. So get it in writing. Moving along to the co-main event, a fight which has many parallels to the main event, championship contest, Daniel Cormier, Volkan Oezdemir. So right off the bat, what do you think of this matchup?
It's almost the only fight that they could make. The light heavyweight division it's a very odd division. It went from being the UFC's marquee division. It produced their biggest, maybe their second biggest pay-per-view last year. And when John Jones is active, it's decent enough, but he's not. And thus for Volkan Oezdemir fighting for the light heavyweight championship here, and he's got as much of a claim to it as anybody. He's just he's got no losses in the UFC, only one in his career. That was in Bellator, of all things. But he's knocking dudes out real quick, with the exception of his UFC debut with Ovince St. Preux. He came in with hype. He's done it more or less, and no one else in the division is really left standing. So he's fine, but this is a big step up. I mean, when your last 2 fights been a combined like a minute and 5 seconds or something like that. I don't care how good, I think Misha Cirkunov is good. I think Jimmy Manoa is good. But if you only fight each guy for 20 seconds, it doesn't mean anything. Cormier is a different beast. We've seen this dude take punches from some of the biggest and best in the sport. And except for really John Jones, nobody's ever done anything to hurt him. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I just think Volkan, maybe a little over his head.
Yeah, there are 2 things that really struck me heading into this match as far as making a pick. Number 1, I could have sworn that Oezdemir was in way, way more Bellator fights than he actually was. He was there for like a couple of years. He was only in 2 before going back in the European circuit and then transitioning to the UFC. So that kind of caught me by surprise. And secondly, you look at the people that Cormier has fought and beat. Dudes with incredible striking power. Dan Henderson, Alexander Gustafsson, and the big one, I think probably the most obvious comparison point heading in this fight, Anthony Johnson. A dude with just insane, like lethal knockout abilities, but Daniel Cormier managed to just completely neutralize him twice. So, do you perhaps see Danny Cormier's strategy in those fights against Johnson being sort of a blueprint for what's going to be going on in the fight against Volkan?
Yeah, I think so. He's always used his wrestling very well. He's such an outstanding clinch fighting wrestler, which is ironic given that he's a freestyle wrestler by trade. When he fought the bigger heavyweights and took their shots, he moved a little bit, but he'd always tie you up and wear you out that way. Now that he's at light heavyweight, he's more or less imposed his wrestling when he gets the chance. That's the safest way for him to win. It's his strongest suit versus Oezdemir's weakest suit. So, yeah, I mean, he's just going to probably get in there and try to clinch and Randy Couture his way to victory.
Yeah, I'm not going to be too controversial on this one. I think Cormier wins. I think he's going to win probably by, I'm going to say, third round guillotine choke. So what do you got?
I would say second round rear naked choke.
You can't argue against that. Very, very close. So we got Miocic defending and reigning and winning the fight and successfully defending his title. We got Cormier defending his title. So I guess the question now is, if you're in the UFC, what do you do moving forward with the heavyweight and light heavyweight division? Like, who do you book for the next title contenders?
Heavyweight's got a few more options. I mean, light heavyweight, I mean, in theory, you're going to hope that John Jones comes back, and then you're just going to book it because what the heck. Otherwise, Alexander Gustafsson, maybe. He's had a close fight with Cormier, and he's up there. It's got a bit of a name. Glover Teixeira just looked pretty good. Even Shogun, who has kind of been on a bit of a run, I could see any of those guys, but it's a weak division. There's just not a ton of guys there name-wise. I kind of feel bad for Cormier that he finally gets to be champion of the world, and just nobody's going to care. And in heavyweight, you've got Verdum is hanging around there, and in theory, maybe Velasquez comes back. He's been kind of teasing it. So I can see either one of those guys fighting. And again, and if Ngannou wins, anybody can fight. It all would open up. But with my thinking that old Stipe is going to get the victory, I would probably go with the Verdum or Velasquez.
And of course, we're recording this on a Tuesday, and a lot of things come between now and Saturday, including some injuries, some last-second pullouts. So do you see perhaps maybe the possibility we might get a little shake-up with the Big Four, like maybe Ngannou may actually pull out of this fight, and we'll actually have Miocic taking on Cormier in a makeshift main event?
Hey, that'd be really interesting. But now I think Ngannou and Miocic are going to fight. If anybody has any problems, it'd be probably Oezdemir. Cormier's just going to make weight. He's going to be there. He's going to compete no matter what. So I think we're going to get this one pulled off there. Just like I'm guessing Tom Brady will pull off a victory that same weekend in that same city.
It's those darn 6th-round draft picks. Just the worst.
Yeah, meanwhile the Bears gave up a bunch of draft picks to move up one spot from 2nd to 3rd overall.
And I'm sure they'll have the next Ray Caruth on their squad. Mitch
Trubisky is our quarterback. He's a wonderful young man from, I don't even know where he was from.
I think he was from North Carolina.
Sounds right. We would go after a quarterback from a college that doesn't really play football.
Well, they didn't have anybody on Duke that year, so what can you do? So, yeah, moving along, and like I said at the beginning of the video, this undercard is one of the worst I think the UFC has put on for pay-per-view in quite some time. Is there any reason to tune into this thing before, midnight Eastern time?
No, not at all. I would tape things maybe on Fox Sports 1. Thomas Almeida, Rob Font might be all right, and Alexander Pantoja versus Dustin Ortiz should also be pretty good. Like some of the fights on the undercard, they'll deliver, they'll be fine. But, when it's Gleison Tebow versus Islam Makhachev, I don't think you're going to really be missing anything if you skip it.
And I think that's actually the curtain jerker for the entire event. So, how the mighty have fallen.
Well, it happens. It's a sport. That's the beauty of the sport. Guys work their way up, and then you can just kind of slowly see them go down the card, especially if they're not super wealthy.
That's the beauty of the American way. All right, so real quick, you want to make your predictions for the undercard? We'll just fly by the seat of our pants here and just run down as fast as we can.
Yeah, let's just try that real quick, I guess.
All right, we got Calvin Guitar taking on Shane Burgos. Who you got?
Shane Burgos, I will say.
All right, we got Jean Villante taking on Francimir Barrosa.
I will go with Jean Villante.
Thomas Almeida, Rob Font, probably the best fight on the undercard in my humble prediction.
Yeah, it's actually pretty tough. I'm going to go with Font because Almeida's a Brazilian and they tend to disappoint.
Just ask during the World Cup. That never happens.
Yeah.
All right, we got Kyle Bochiniak taking on Brandon Davis in the FS1 headliner. I'm not familiar with all these two guys, so you got to fill me in.
I know Kyle Bochniak a little bit. Brandon Davis. I'm going to go with Bochniak to win.
And we have a really good one here. It's an all Islamic clash between Sabah Hamasi taking on Abdul Razik Al Hassan. So, who will have Muhammad's grace in this fight?
I will think that Mark Wahlberg will come out of the crowd and attack both of them while saying something about the Boston bombing.
And also, who get paid $1 million for the reshoots?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was just relevant pop cultural material. Dustin Ortiz taking on Alexandra Pantajo, the Cannibal. What a great nickname.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Dustin Ortiz. Really good, underrated as heck.
Yeah, I really want to see more out of him. I think he's kind of being underutilized. Then we've got Dan Ige taking on Julio Arce. I don't even know. I don't pretend to care.
I don't care. I don't know either, really.
And we haven't even got to like the early prelims yet. That's how bad the card is. All right, Matt Bissett taking on.
I mean, like Matt Bissett, Enrique Brazola, blah. Mary Morose versus Jamie Moyle at women's strawweight. They're just chicks are fighting, so they'll be kind of entertaining, but not all that great. And then lightweight Islam Makhachev versus Gleison Tebow. That's actually pretty decent. Makhachev's going to be one of those Dagestani type of dudes, and with a name like Islam Makhachev, you just know he's going to be tough. And Gleison Tebow is just a big old steroid cheat, so he'll probably lose.
Yeah. And I hear he's the best at cutting weight in the UFC too, so that goes for something.
No, yeah, he always was for years. He was just the biggest lightweight there was.
And how long has he been in the UFC? So he's been fighting forever now. He's been there at least 10 years.
Yeah, no, I have a very clear memory of him fighting in the summer of 2008. And even when he was fighting then, I was still familiar with him. So I would guess I bet 11 or 12 years he's somewhere around that range.
Not a lot of job security in MMA these days, so for him to hang around that long in the lightweight division, I think is pretty remarkable.
Oh, yes, especially at lightweight. I mean, let's see, his UFC debut was November of 2006 when he lost to Nick Diaz.
Woo, time, it does fly. All right, well, those are our official UFC 220 predictions. I'll throw it back to Mike Coughlin, let him wrap everything up. Anything you want to plug or any other musings on the crazy world of mixed martial arts? I know we have the Bellator show too, but I mean, who cares?
And no one cares about Bellator, and I hope everybody tunes in for probably the first time in a while the UFC's had a show where we'll feel like you will get your money by buying it.
Hey, I can't argue there. This is a card almost good enough to purchase. So, if the UFC is watching this video, we encourage to buy things legally and never, live stream things because that's piracy, and piracy is bad.
It is wrong. I hate it.
Yeah, you will definitely go to hell for it. So there's also that as a deterrent.
And kids, that's the lesson of this show. You want to avoid hell.
You do. Trust us. We're both divorced.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't know how to move on from that, so I'm just going to turn off the off button. We'll be seeing you at the Cage on Saturday night. Should be a good show, and we'll be talking with Mike Coughlin many, many, many times throughout the year. Thank you so much, Mr. Coughlin. That's halfguarded.com, halfguarded.com, halfguarded.com. Enjoy the show. What else can we say?